case. My colleague who's with me today, we just want to thank Murray State, the organizers of this event, and we really appreciate this opportunity to come down here and tell you folks who we are, a little bit about our office, where we come, where we're trying to go, and what we're looking forward to doing in the very near future. I have a little slide that
sometimes everyone isn't really everyone. Like when people say everyone's on the internet, because the truth is, for each person that can get online, there are two that can't. And when you look closer, that everyone looks even less like everyone. In some places, it's more like 1 in 1,000. In others, it's 1 in 10,000. And in some places, no one's online at all. But what if there was a way to light up the entire globe and finally make all the world's information accessible to all of the world's people? Well, even though today 1 in 3 kids can't get to a real secondary school, everyone could have secondary school come to them. In places where there aren't enough doctors, everyone could be held by doctors in other places. Farmers everywhere could start using better weather data, so everyone could enjoy a bigger harvest. And because small businesses that are on the internet grow twice as fast, everyone could create new opportunities for everyone. But how do we bring affordable internet to everyone?
And that's exactly what our office has been saying for some time. How can we bring affordable internet to everyone? We'll get back off of this and back to the presentation. I borrowed that from Google with the Google Loon project. I don't know if anyone has heard about that. Yeah, it's been around for a little bit. And the theory was that Google would take weather balloons, actually, and set them up in the stratosphere, many of them, I'm sure, and be able to broadcast a Wi-Fi signal down. And as these things circle the planet, basically everybody's going to get Wi-Fi. Recently, if you've been watching the news in eastern Kentucky, one of their satellite weather balloons actually went down. Even though they claimed responsibility, a local astronomer there says it's still unidentified. So our office was created back in October 2010. Essentially, we wanted to research broadband program best practices. We did some, to conduct services, provider outreach, develop and validate broadband mapping, and of course the mapping was strictly a volunteer effort. So all the efforts that we've done over the last several years to do our mapping has been voluntary, but we feel like we've done a pretty good job. Basically, our mission statement is accelerate the expansion of sustainable broadband access in the Commonwealth and determine the characteristics of that access. Our role to be an advocate in Frankfurt, establish statewide broadband direction and policy, which we're currently involved in, and we're moving forward in that as well, and facilitate access to broadband resources. We certainly want to work toward improving adoption rates, improve trends in the growth of broadband adoption, reduce the number of citizens that currently see no value in broadband, and that is a huge issue. Working toward improving content provision and, of course, promote customer demand, which hopefully then in turn promotes the infrastructure providers to get in those areas and provide services. A little bit about us. We received a federal grant, our office, back in 2010, of over $5.3 million. The governor this year decided to create our office to manage those funds and try to improve the broadband, for the state broadband initiative, and of which I'm project manager there, and Dana's our project coordinator. The grant money was twofold. Basically, the first part of it was mapping. And so we contracted with Michael Becker Jr. Group, and still with those folks, and they are providing mapping data on a state level, but also putting this data that they get on every 6 months. They're pumping it up to NTIA, and they are using that for the national map. So we currently have on our website, you can go out and see our mapping, see what's going on with respect to all the providers and everything that's happening in our state, as far as who gets what, 3G all the way up to whatever services that are available. When we went through there, from this information, well, the second part of it, to get back, was for outreach and development, basically to promote awareness and adoption. And that is where our focus still remains, and that is what we're still trying to do, is to promote what people can do and what the internet really can do for the citizens of the Commonwealth, and get them then to hopefully adopt where they can, for those people that can actually get access, be able to adopt it and start using the internet more and more. As we went through there, and we've talked to many other states, Dana and I traveled to D.C., and we sat in a conference with just about every state around that was involved in these programs, and they all have the same struggles. Obviously, it's access, awareness, and adoption. Everybody has the same issues. The struggles for Kentucky is really no different. We have 91.5% that actually have access. Awareness, of course, the education and value. There's so many people out there saying, I don't need the internet. What I need, I don't need Facebook. I don't need to do this. I don't need that. They're just really unaware of perhaps what the internet can actually do and how much it can change their lives. And of course, Kentucky, an adoption rate of 58%. Connectivity and availability access, about 91.5% or 3.8 million Kentucky citizens have access. That's a lot. Kentucky ranks 40th in availability, and 8.5% do not access broadband at all. So there's about 400,000 people. It doesn't mean they don't have access to broadband, it just means they don't have it in their homes. And of course, many are driving to Wi-Fi hotspots because they don't have it in their homes, and their children need it, or they need it for business, or they need it for whatever purposes. So they'll go to McDonald's, or they'll go just a public library, so they'll go anywhere where there's a Wi-Fi hotspot, and that's where they're going to connect. The demographics in Kentucky, we have a population of 4.273 million people, roughly. Total square miles of around 40,411. About 1.7 million households. I can't see that. Let's see. Basically, half of our population lives on 22% of our land. So half of that 4,673,000 people live on 22% of our land. And that's telling us that part is what we call the Golden Triangle. And I know many of you in the room, I'm sure, are familiar with the Golden Triangle. And it comprises mostly, in the northern Kentucky area, there's around 427,000. In Louisville and surrounding counties, about 1.1 million. And then in Lexington and the surrounding counties, around 647,000 people. And to me, this is a staggering slide for me, because I realize that everybody is up in this Golden Triangle. Down in here, half of our population is there, and they don't have quite the access that the Golden Triangle is. Everything is happening up here. I think service providers, they kind of target this area. They want to go in these areas up north, but not much is going on down in the other areas. There are some things that are happening. There's some feasibility studies going on down in southern and eastern Kentucky, where they're getting ready to hopefully put in some fiber and start doing things there. But to me, if you want a job, you got to move out of eastern Kentucky. If you want a job over 50,000, you got to go up here, and that's where everybody's concentrating their efforts on. Just recently, by the end of December, the K-RON project is going to be connecting the northern Kentucky area with UK. Louisville, U of L, K-State, and our Commonwealth Office of Technology with 100 gigabit fiber optic speeds. So we're really looking forward to getting that moving forward. National statistics, internet use by state: Utah, 80%. New Hampshire, as you can see. Where's Kentucky? 58%. And it's ranking 47th. Other than college sports, I don't know if Kentucky is actually ranked in the top 5 just about anything. But those are the statistics, as we see. You can see here, this is basically unserved areas in Kentucky, based on when this map was done. And you see the population levels there, if everybody can see. So we have a lot of work to do, no question.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Don't take it, that's what I say. But didn't we start late in mapping our state?
We probably, I'm sure we started later than maybe perhaps.
Why was that?
I couldn't tell you.
No, that's not really true. The first statewide broadband map was done in the state of Kentucky in about 2005.
Okay, so, and then we came along in roughly 10 and started doing that later. So I'm not sure how far behind it was. I would say it's probably ahead of other states, actually.
Yeah, it was.
I think, yeah.
I'm not sure if there was another state that actually had a statewide broadband map at that time.
Very good.
And we started this with the funds, the federal funds of mapping. So when those funds became available, the RFPs were sent out and that.
You know, we understood that we needed to do the mapping, and we understood, so we went out, we got the grant, and once we got the grant monies to do the mapping, and then we were able to move forward and start doing this, and our office was then created. We've been with them since February of this year. Dana's been with them a couple of years, and Brian, our executive director, basically the same kind of thing. We all kind of came in about the same time, but the mapping was already in progress, or getting close to being implemented and moved forward. So I'm not sure, I don't believe yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, man, I think some mapping existed or was underway at the time that broadband would be regulated in 2004.
We started, right now again, our mapping essentially is not complete. It's ongoing. We're going to continue to do that until December 31st, 2014. That's when our grant runs out. We will continue to do mapping up to that point every 6 months. Our contractor loads information again, uploads it to NTIA, who populates the national map. So that effort's going to continue to go until then. We're not sure exactly where it's going to go after that. NTIA says that they are going to take it back over essentially. We heard that at the conference that we in DC not too long ago. We may want to, and I think we're certainly talking about it, is trying to find a way to continue to manage it on a state level, up for us to continue to maintain it, let's put it that way.
Do you have to notify any agency that you want to go into a county that doesn't have any broadband?
We have to notify.
Is there an agency you go to?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Do you have to notify a utility that you're coming in?
not to my knowledge. But we would want to. It's certainly something that we would do. You know, one of the things, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the map is based on provider data. So it's whether or not they want to participate in sending us this information. And this information is sent up to the NTIA.
I know I had a state rep that asked me in Bourbon County, if they wanted to have broadband, they couldn't get it.
Mhm.
I wonder why.
Various and sundry reasons. The service is not there or for whatever. And that's the purpose of we would like for those persons, and we get calls from constituents all the time, to call our office and tell us these things. We can actually go to our map. If we get a call, we had recently a blueberry farmer up in one part of the state. Says, you know, I can't get internet, I don't have it, you know. So we got online, we were able to see all the service providers that potentially were in the area. We were actually literally be able to see where her home is and her farm is, and there's only like 200-300 feet or whatever that separated, you know, a good connection to her house. So we work with people like that to try to help them. We contact, if it's Windstream, AT&T, whoever it is, our wireless service provider, fixed wireless, which seem to be doing a pretty good job these days. We contact those and we help them work together and try to get those things happening for them. And that's what we do. And I misunderstood your question, but what Dana said was, yes, this is all volunteer. We send out all kinds of surveys and questions. We just practically beg service providers, please give us this information. Some of them cooperate, some don't. Some give you a lot of it, but don't give you all of it for whatever reasons. So all of this is just volunteer information that we get, and I know anybody that's been in mapping before, they understand, the process that you have to go through to get that.
I'm Bob Smith. I'm with North Central Telephone. I'm here standing in for Nancy White today, and Michael had asked me to come and kind of give a presentation following yours on North Central Telephone's experience with broadband rollout. So maybe I can speak to some of these issues in the second part of the presentation.
Very good, thank you. So,
Robert,
yes.
my follow-up, on the map though, then since the carrier information voluntary, then is it likely that there's more broadband out there than is shown?
I would say, yeah, there's potential for plus or minus. I would think, yes, I would agree. Again, if we can get all this information, the more we get, and we're actually trying to get some folks on the ground at some point out there with some other projects that we're doing is going to be able to kind of help us understand better what our resources are.
Although that may change because the FCC is going to do auctions for unserved areas. And if you have service in an area, but there was, for a competitive reason, you didn't want to make it known, that's going to change because the FCC may auction off your territory, and then that would introduce, in essence, a competitor. So with all of the changes that are part of the transformation order, that the dynamics will change significantly in that regard.
And that's probably the second or third time we've heard something in reference to that that's coming up. So back to, we had first thoughts about what we were wanting to do and what was going on, what was happening, and we had second thoughts about it. And of course, right now, this is where we really are. We just created a brochure. We're going out to different areas in the Commonwealth and promoting awareness and adoption. This is what we're all about now, is trying to be an advocate for the folks, people, even the ones that have it, but especially for me, it's the folks that don't have it and want access in their office. We want, or their areas, in their regions, we want to make sure that they get it as best we can. Providers can't move fast enough for me to get into these areas and help these people. I just can't say enough about it. So awareness adoption, 1.4 million have access to broadband in this state, but they don't use it. They see no value there. And again, that's why it provides no value but affordability. And I know that's one of Dana's big things in our office. It's affordability. My boss always says, hey, what's affordable to me may not be affordable to somebody else. So, and this says Kentucky is loaded with like 90-some-odd%, broadband or whatever. Most people are carrying cell phones, and how are you going to, with 3G, 4G or whatever, how are you going to try to run a business from your home, work from home, and those kinds of things with your telephone? So our office is more about not just not access, internet access, but better broadband, larger, given the ability to bring economic development into the state and for people to telework from home, which is becoming very, very popular, and to start their own businesses at home. I have a fellow that I work with who wants to start a business with an airlines company and work basically to do reservations for them. But he's frustrated because the best he can get on his farm, it's not 10 miles away from downtown capital Frankfurt, is it's maybe 10 meg at the most, and he really needs something a little more robust. The largest barrier to broadband adoption is not access to technology, but it's really a perceived lack of need, and that's what we're faced with. About 2.4 million Kentuckians subscribe to an ISP, and that's the 58%. That's where that comes from. But even though we report 91% availability, it's not true availability to our citizens because it's unaffordable or it's inadequate, and that's what I was making mention to just now. And it's not just an eastern, western Kentucky problem. It exists 15 minutes from any big city in this, or relatively large city in the Commonwealth. Just a few minutes outside, it goes rural. I mean, most of our 120 counties, I think, urban, is minimal compared to all the counties that are considered rural. And of course, urban areas struggle too. The places like Lexington, Louisville, Covington, Bowling Green, they have 2 of the 3 issues. It's not access, it's just awareness and adoption. The perceived notion, that it can improve their lives, and they can shop online now. They can do anything online right now. They can look for jobs. They can go back to school. They can do things that's going to make their lives better. And of course, with the rural areas of Kentucky, they have all 3 of the issues: access, little to none, awareness, and adoption. Basically, they just don't see the value in it. According to the latest FCC report, 1.5% of the urban area Kentucky population is without access. Only 1.5%. The 23% of rural Kentucky is without access. 23% is without access. No access at all. And getting back to the Loon program, what it said, considering sometimes it's saying everyone is on the internet is just really not accurate. And we see that when you look closer to we're saying everyone, you realize that it's a lot less than everyone. And of course, we all know the possibilities of what high-speed, better broadband internet can do for everybody, for education, economic development, e-health, E911, we were talking about earlier, FirstNet, and many, many others, So what we're trying to figure out in our office is how do we move Kentucky forward? What is it that we can do to help? And I think the main thing that we're doing now, we're getting ready to start some provider outreach, where we're going to hold some conferences, most likely phone conferences, since we want to get as many people involved as we can and get them on the phone and start talking to them, tell them what's going on, what we're seeing, and how can you help? How can you get out there as a telecommunications persons or whomever, and get out there and help these folks and start getting out of the golden triangle and actually trying to do something else with the rest of the state. Our cabinet secretary, when we go to her and start talking to her about things, whatever, first thing she says is, give me some good news outside the golden triangle. Now, everything's fine up there. Everybody's lit, We do have some adoption issues up there, but they're very, very small. But they're issues. But it's the rest of Kentucky, it's the half of our population that lives on 80% of our land. It's staggering to think that we're not reaching out to them, and it's not fast enough. Yes, sir.
When you look at the area that's where there are, the rural area, do you see different adoption based on other demographic factors like age, household income, things like that?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely. To give you an exact example, more of the Eastern Kentucky folks. I mean, I know that they want my boss gets, they want TV down there. So when it comes down to their TV or having internet access, I think they're going to keep their TV. Again, they have no perceived, older retired folks or people that's never been on the internet before, who has just lived a life without it all their lives, and they live in Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky, wherever, and just don't see a need for it. But if you get up into the Golden Triangle, I'm sure that most everybody up there does, and they probably use it for their jobs or whatever the case may be. Yeah, there's just so many different reasons why people are adopting. And one of the things is affordability, and that's one of the biggest issues. But even if it is affordable, even if they have access, there's just some people they're afraid of it. One of the things we're doing, and we've been working on this for a while. The second part of our grant monies was about outreach and awareness and adoption. And we did some planning in 5 regions of the state. And we put some plans together now that we're going to start reaching out into at least 3 of those regions using CPE and the University of Murray and a couple others to maybe get internet access centers going, e-learning centers, and set up places where people can come and get on internet for the first time. We don't care if they go to Facebook, we don't care what they do with it. But getting them in there, and hopefully having, maybe providing an instructor, someone that can help them sit down and show them how to use it. You know, and for the first time, give them that power. And that's what we're looking to do and all across the state. So we're really excited about those projects, and hopefully they'll be kicking off in the next couple of months. Yes, sir.
Let me just follow up on that, because you're seeming to paint all of rural that it doesn't have.
It's not
Period.
exactly.
But there are pockets out there that it
Yes.
does.
Oh, yes.
And you know, they provide pretty good, you know, there's adoptions up, you know, certainly and they all have fiber. So, I mean, there's areas out there, but so just don't paint it all as, you know, we're just outside the Golden Triangle, because there's areas within the Golden Triangle area that are outside of the metropolitan area.
Sure.
That don't have a lot of stuff out there either.
I agree. The statistics that we have was based on Kentucky as a whole. Okay, so I agree. There are pockets, and there are some new, like I mentioned before, there are some surveys or independent studies or whatever that's being going, feasibility studies actually, that's going on down in southern area that's going to maybe move up into the east, that's going to provide some tremendous access. You know, we're just saying that the majority of the population, the majority of the 120 counties, in fact, 85% of 102 counties are not nationally competitive, and that is a problem. So,
There's a
and
lot
we
of-
can refer to those as urban or rural.
There's a lot of the small telephone companies that have done well. Randy, there's a lot of cable out there that is put on fiber. You know,
Keep going.
and they're in the rural areas. They're
Yes,
just,
sir.
you know, and to paint them all to say it's just not there, it sort of hurts us.
I'll refrain from that. Good point. Yes, sir, back here.
I'm with the West Virginia Public Service Commission, so we share a lot of demographics with Eastern Kentucky. And I guess, do you see the issue with geography and population density with trying to get the carriers to go into those areas as well too? And then I have friends who have moved over from West Virginia to Eastern Kentucky. Their problem is even when you have those rollouts that you're talking about, the speeds are not competitive at all. The speeds are awful. I mean, that's another issue that we're not talking about too. It becomes a problem too at that area too, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, essentially what they're saying is, you know, to have a decent experience on the internet, you're going to need at least, you know, especially like telework and everything, you're going to need at least 20 megabits per second, at least, and that's pretty much all.
I'm sorry, that, some years ago, we passed the CARA Act, which allowed schools to get into technology. So all those areas in eastern Kentucky have a pent-up demand for technology and through their children in the education system. The Golden Triangle is paying for part of that, funds that we normally have, and we're glad they do that. I was the mayor who helped do that, so, you know, and I get feedback all the time from people saying, you know, CARA is the best thing that ever happened to us. So there is a great pent-up demand for technology transfer. And the money that you have in that grant to make that happen.
We, our grant is open December 31st, 2014, and we've already appropriated and allocated all the monies that we need to for our mapping, and we do have some funding left, and that is what we're getting ready to use coming up in the next few months. We're currently working it out with some universities to help us do just that, start pushing out in some of these areas that really need it. When I talk rural areas, man, I mean the rural, most rural.
Are you talking
areas.
infrastructure, Robin, when you talk
No,
about pushing it out? Are you talking about
This would be more of a,
the five plans, the 5 regional plans?
this would be more
Implementation on that?
more associated with bringing people together and talk about ways that they can create infrastructure in the areas and help them. I mean, we won't have any actual doing any of that. That is not part of our grant. This is just bringing people together, talking about how to do it, working with them and trying to find grants for themselves or whatever it takes to actually start improving in a community at a community level, I mean, you know, at grassroots level, start building, helping people get broadband in their areas. That's basically all we can. We just have advocates that's going to work with us to try to get all those people together, the major stakeholders in the areas and communities, to work together and to make these things happen. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say the points that you're making, I think, in varying degrees are relevant for all of the states that are represented here. There's one figure nationally that really kind of says it all, and that is that nationally, broadband is available to 97% of the population. But the 3% to which it is not available constitute 40% of the national landmass. 40%.
That's exactly right. You know, again, we sat in these meetings with Utah, Alaska, I mean, everybody was at these meetings, and every state, Eastern Kentucky power up big time and bring some business in there. That's going to, you know, but we need to get those folks work ready first, you know, so they need to get on the internet and savvy. They need to be, you know, figure out how to do that, and then maybe try to bring industry in, more industry, because it really suffers, and we could definitely use that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What are the typical tools that your office can use to incentivize some of that build-out?
Wow. I would say just basic communications, trying to work with providers, work with constituents, pull them together, try to find some way that they can get what they need. Again, we don't have any tools. I think eventually we'd like to see some legislation passed. That's going to maybe help a few things, but not against providers, obviously, but something that might incentivize providers to do more. But we really can't. We just can't. I mean, when you have a provider that says, you know, I need 12 houses or 17 houses on a mile before I'm going to go in and I'm going to do anything in that area, that's a problem. I mean, in rural areas, you know, there may not be but 3 or 4 houses within 5 miles. Okay, that doesn't mean they don't deserve it or shouldn't have it or whatever, but it's just a little bit cost prohibitive, I think, for providers to go in and do that. And we've heard that in several of our sessions and meetings, that it takes X number for them to even think about it. And that's why I think the Golden Triangle is so popular, you know, because everybody's there. Anything else? Yes, sir. One more, I'm sorry. One more.
Well, and this may be a question for the next speaker too. You mentioned 20 meg as almost like a threshold. I don't want to recast your remark, but that number sounded quite high to me. To me, part of the value of broadband is the persistent connection, and not so much speed per se. And I'm just wondering if there's what's out there that's objective about a standard that's actually needed to promote the types of purposes that you discussed in terms of, say, education and homework.
Maybe I can answer a little bit of that with this. There's a recent, and I'll run through this while he's getting set up. The University of Kentucky researchers used statistical models to estimate the percentage of households in each county of Kentucky having high-speed broadband internet in their home. They combined these estimates with government figures on the extent of the high-speed broadband infrastructure to categorize each of the Kentucky 120 counties into one of 4 groups: nationally competitive, on the cusp, frustrated servers, and the information highway slow lane. There are 18 nationally competitive counties. These counties have download speeds and high-speed internet utilization rates that are equal to or greater than the U.S. average. The next group on the cusp had with at least 50% of the households having access to 25 megabits. But originally they were talking about having, let's see if I can find it. U.S. Small Business Administration distance learning, for example, requires a minimum of 25 megabit download speed for an okay experience. An experience of 50 megabits for a good experience. So, you know, I was just throwing out a number that was in this survey that says that, I mean, I think we probably figured out maybe 5 megabits is really not going to, NTI, even set up some standards that said that certain speeds are best if you're going to do video or audio or voice over IP, VoIP or whatever. So,
as a response to that, my previous job, I converted an online program or an in-person program at Clemson to fully online synchronous. We actually only really needed about 6 megabits, and we delivered a pretty fluid experience with live video, live audio.
Just part of the reason I asked is like, just to take one company as an example, and they may or may not be here, but just like say Windstream. If 20 meg were a threshold, then you might say that Windstream doesn't provide satisfactory service anywhere, and I don't think Windstream would agree with that. I don't agree with that. And they're the second largest phone company in the state. And that's just kind of what I was wondering. Again, maybe this is a question for a provider that might be able to.
certainly is. I don't have a at-home business, and I certainly don't have a larger business that requires me to work all the way around the world. So I have no idea exactly what it takes. I'm not an expert on that. Quoting some figures to you, what the recent reports reveal.